All right, what is going on? What's happening? How's everybody doing today? My name is Chuck, and welcome back to a brand new video. Today, I'm going to be giving you guys my top 5 best AR loadouts you guys can use here in Warzone. After the most recent update, I went through and gave you guys a general overall loadouts, which included ARs, SMGs, a whole bunch of stuff. But I wanted to specifically focus on assault rifles here today, as that's going to be a huge thing. Since the more meta ones like the Craig, the C58, and all that stuff did get nerfed, so let's jump into some awesome loadouts. Before any farther, though, make sure you guys go ahead and drop a like in the next 5 seconds for some good luck, and hit that subscribe button as well with all notifications turned on. I'm on the road to 800,000 subscribers, so it'd be amazing if you join the squad. Okay, so what we're gonna do here is I'm gonna build out a pretty awesome EM2 loadout. I absolutely love the EM2. This is probably like my favorite AR to use right now. It's got a tad bit of recoil, but it hits unbelievably hard, and it's definitely kind of like the C58 replacement for me personally. So I want to show you guys here a really awesome build for this thing. First thing in that muzzle category is going to be the agency suppressor. This is of course an AR, so we're trying to give this, the most amount of, vertical recoil control, bullet velocity, effective damage range, all that, good shenanigans. We're not going to use a regular suppressor, which would be pretty much for like, a regular like SMG type of build. But even though with the SMGs, you kind of have to use, the agency or the GRU, whatever it may be. So for this thing, we're going to use the agency suppressor. Next up in that barrel section, we're going to go throw on the 25.8 task force barrel. This is going to be the best barrel by far, though it does come with quite a few cons in terms of your overall mobility and movement speed, which is entirely okay because we're not trying to make this thing like super mobile. But don't worry, this thing is still going to handle just fine. And you're not really going to have to worry about too many things in terms of your mobility with this gun. I personally have a lot of fun using this thing. I think it's a top tier AR, so we're going to throw on the task force barrel for that. And then in the underbarrel section, we're going to go throw on the field agent grip. This is going to give us that horizontal and vertical recoil control, which we desperately need with this gun because this thing does have a decent bit of kick. And I do believe it's been updated here probably like once or twice in order to kind of deal with that kick and actually give it a little bit more because it was hitting pretty hard without much consequence. But if you guys can manage to control some of that recoil, I mean, you're going to be pretty set and you're going to be hitting a lot of, hard hitting shots. And that's why I absolutely love this thing because it hits so hard. So we're going to use the field agent grip on this. Now in the magazine section, I'm not going to go through and use the Stenag 50 round, as that's what I'd normally like to use, the largest magazine possible. That is a regular magazine on an AR. But for this gun in particular, I feel like it slows it down just a little bit too much for my personal taste. So what we're going to do is we're going to throw on the 40 round magazine, and because this thing doesn't have a super high fire rate, you're going to be perfectly okay. And the 40 round magazine is going to be just do wonders for your overall mobility. It just feels like such a big difference between using the 40 and the 50. I don't really know what it is, but I mean, whatever they're doing there with that ADS time on the 50, I mean, when you don't get that with the 40, it's just a night and day difference. So always run the 40. And then to finish off this build here, we're going to go throw on the Axle Arms 3x scope. I mean, hey, you can't go wrong with the Axle Arms. I mean, it's literally like just the best optic in my opinion for the Cold War ARs. So just always throw on the Axle Arms here on a majority of your guns. So that's going to be my full build here for the EM2. I love this thing. This is probably like my go-to meta AR right now in Warzone. I just love using it, especially on Rebirth. It just hits. You guys definitely should try this one out and tell me what you think in the comment section below. Now let's actually jump into an AR that is getting a lot of love here recently, and that's the Cold War AK-47. So this thing was used as like a hybrid AR SMG at one point, like an SMG because it's really good, but then they nerfed a whole bunch of stuff. It's gone through a whole bunch of different meta changes, and now with all the other guns getting nerfed, the AK as a primary AR has made its way into the whole, battlefield. And I'm not gonna lie, I've been using this a lot, especially as of today over on my live stream over on Facebook Gaming. You guys can find that link in the description below. I've been using this thing a lot and it is really good. So let's give you guys here a class setup for it. In the muzzle, we're gonna throw on the GRU suppressor. Like I said, agency and GRU, you pretty much have to use on your ARs. So I'm not gonna spend too much time on this. You guys probably get the drill, or you understand what to be able to use on this thing. In the barrel section, what we're gonna do is we're gonna throw on the 20 Spetsnaz RPK barrel. This is the heaviest barrel. This is essentially the task force barrel for this gun because it's that 7.62 where it is an AK variant, so it has the Spetsnaz instead of the agency or the task force or whatever it may be for whatever specific gun. So we're gonna go through on the Spetsnaz, as this is the hardest hitting barrel, which is gonna give the most amount of AR-like benefits, which is what we are looking for. Next up in the underbarrel section, we do need one, unfortunately. I know a while back you didn't need to use one, especially like you didn't have to use one on the FAR 83 pre-nerf. That was kind of crazy. But now you have to use one specifically on that gun because it is kind of crazy for recoil. But on this thing, we're going to use the Spetsnaz grip here for that horizontal and vertical, much like we needed to be able to control it on the EM2. This is going to have a little bit less recoil and it's going to be more of a laser beam. But you still definitely need to have the Spetsnaz on here. I don't really think there's any sort of debate on this thing. Always run the Spetsnaz. on, you know, the AK-47 if you're going to be using this as a primary AR, which I believe is probably the only effective way to use it here nowadays. So just going through on the Spetsnaz. For the magazine, we're once going to do actually the basic 45 round magazine and not the Bakelite 60. For whatever reason, on the EM2 and the AK-47, the 60 round magazine, or the large magazine that's not a fast mag, really just makes it feel unbelievably slow and just kind of sluggish. And I feel like I start losing gunfights because I can't bring my gun up fast enough. So we're gonna go with the 45, and like, you know, the EM2, this thing doesn't have a super high fire rate, so you're gonna be able to control that, you know, your recoil, you're gonna be able to hit a lot of shots, and then you're gonna be able to get a pretty awesome reload off with pretty much like no side effects here, which is really, really awesome. So the 45 round mag feels beautiful to me, and I would highly suggest that. Then finish this whole build off here. Of course, we're gonna go through and throw on the Axle Arms 3 times, which is, like I said, my favorite optic for the Cold War ARs here. This is a banger build here for the AK-47. Love this thing. Definitely gonna be making a dedicated video on this just to showcase some gameplay because, hey, you know, the AK-47 is really good. Okay, so let's jump into one of my personal favorite weapons here in the entirety of Modern Warfare, Warzone, Cold War, Warzone, whatever you want to call it. That's the M4A1. So the M4 is always been really good, but it's just been kind of outclassed via like some different, you know, updates and everything, and new guns getting added in. Specifically, the Cold War guns were just unbelievably good there for a long time, and stuff has kind of shifted here and there, but now we got a pretty good meta slot, and the M4A1 is just really good. So let's give you guys a solid build that you're going to be able to dominate for Dansk, and of course Rebirth, with I particularly play Rebirth exclusively. So let's actually jump into this thing. Muzzle category, we're going to throw on that monolithic suppressor. Sound suppression, damage range, you know what I'm saying? Like, this is going to be the best thing right here. We don't ever want to use the lightweight or the tactical. It doesn't even matter if you're playing like with an SMG. Like, you still don't ever want to use a tactical or a lightweight on those things. It's just not worth it. Just run the monolithic on absolutely every single Modern Warfare AR, SMG, LMG. Unless it's, you know, the Odin. At that point, you have the Colossal suppressor. Then I'd recommend doing that. But for this thing, we are running the monolithic. Next up in that barrel section, we're going to throw on the stock M16 Grenadier barrel. Though you can switch this out for the Corvus Custom Marksman if you're going to be playing some Rebirth, but if you're playing Verdansk, I would highly suggest you to run the stock M16 Grenadier barrel, as that is going to be significantly better for range. Though if you want a little bit more mobility and you're okay with losing a little bit of all three of those, you know, pros right there, you can definitely run the Corvus Custom Marksman and be a little bit more agile. You can have a little bit more forgiveness here on Rebirth by running that. But specifically for everybody, I would just recommend the stock M16 barrel. I mean, that's even what I'm going to be running on Rebirth, to be honest with you guys. So I just go ahead and throw that on there. Next up in that underbarrel section, we're going to throw on the Commando foregrip here. Don't got to go too crazy with it. I mean, you can throw on the Merc, I guess, if you really wanted to, but I think that's just going to slow you down. I mean, or same with like the Ranger or something like that. I mean, they're just going to slow you down like way too much. The M4 doesn't got that much recoil, so just keep it very simple. Throw on the Commando foregrip, call it a day. Don't have to go too like nuts with it. This is what I've been running for pubs, for, you know, Warzone. I mean, I really just don't feel the need to switch this out, so we're going to throw that on there. Next in the magazine section, you guys know what I'm about to say. I'm a 60-round magazine kind of guy, so I'm throwing on the 60-round magazine. The M4A1 is just kind of like that gun that I'm always going to run that 60 on. Always skip over these two right here. These are absolute shenanigans. Terrible. Don't ever use them. There's no reason. If you're trying to make this an SMG, there's like 10 other different SMGs that are going to outclass this thing out of like the 12 that are in the game, or however many are in the game. I don't even know at this point. But you know, the SOCOM rounds, I mean, what are we trying to use? Make this like a DMR 14 or something like that? Don't ever do that. It's not worth it. So we're gonna throw on the 60 here, and that's just gonna be that. And to finish off this build here, we're gonna throw in an optic. Though you could definitely do something a little bit different if you want to. We're gonna throw on that VLK 3x optic. And what I'm meaning by, if you guys want to do something a little bit different, you could throw on maybe like a tac laser if you want to be a little bit more, you know, kind of, you know, in people's face, but and have a little bit more mobility. And so if you're to play like Rebirth or something like that, but if you're playing for Verdansk, I'd highly recommend running the VLK 3x. Back, you know, back in the day, I would say like, hey, you know, you don't need a scope on this thing. But now, just because the meta and the way everything, you know, is, and how things are laser beams, and you got no recoil and got a pretty good TTK, I mean, you kind of have to run a, you know, a VLK on a lot of your ARs nowadays. So this is a pretty awesome M4A1 build here. Hopefully you guys do enjoy this one. This is a top AR in my opinion. I love this thing. Definitely competes a lot more nowadays than it used to. Definitely go ahead and try it out. Okay, so now let's get into the gun here that's going to be on the thumbnail, which is that Grau 5.56. This is another Modern Warfare AR, thankfully another Modern Warfare weapon that has made its way into the meta. Don't see it a heck of a lot because it's got, you know, very high accuracy, but it's not the highest damage output. But if you're going to be landing your shots, I mean, you're going to be downing people. That's just as simple as that. So we're gonna throw on this gun here, and first thing obviously is gonna be that mono suppressor. Don't gotta spend too much time on that. You guys already know, I explained it, you know, mono in every single AR, SMG, whatever it may be. So throwing on that thing. In the barrel section, we're going to throw on the Tempest 26.4 Archangel barrel. So unlike the Modern Warfare M4A1, this is not a negotiable attachment category. You always have to run the 26.4 Archangel barrel. At a certain point, you used to be able to get away with running the Nexus barrel, as that was kind of like, the Corvus Custom Marksman, version of, this gun. But this is just definitely not it. Don't ever do that. Don't ever waste your time with that. Also, the Tempest has incredible iron sights, which we're going to utilize for this build in specific. So I would highly, highly recommend you guys use the Tempest barrel exclusively and don't ever mess with any of these other barrels. It is just not worth it. Even if you're trying to make this into an SMG, don't ever do that. Not worth it either. Now, so next up here in the underbarrel section, Commando foregrip like we did for the M4. I mean, this thing ain't gonna have that much recoil. I mean, it's gonna have, well, pretty much almost non-existent recoil. So we're gonna throw on the Commando, and that's just gonna neutralize out a large majority of anything we could possibly, get out of this. So we're throwing on that, and then the magazine section, 60 round magazine. Y'all already know, 60 round magazine kind of guy. Only reason I can see you guys running a 50 is if you want to be like a little bit of that guy in solos and have a tad bit more mobility. Running a 30 on this thing is just, not acceptable in any way, shape, or form. So you have to run like a 50 or a 60, but you already know I'm running a 60 no matter what. I don't care if I'm playing solos, duos, trios, quads. I mean, well, specifically because I play Rebirth, there's no solos, so I'm always playing quads or trios at the very least. So there's just, no reason for me not to run a 60. And then finish off this whole build here, we're going to go throw on a laser, which is going to utilize our iron sights because they are incredible. So we're going to throw on the tack laser. That's increase our ADS speed, aiming stability, and aim locking steadiness. This is ultimately what it's going to do is going to help us obviously ADS faster, but it's going to make your gun more stable when you're firing. So you're going to be hitting a lot more of those shots and utilizing those clean Grau iron sights, which I personally love. Definitely need to get some gameplay with this and showcase this specifically in a video as well. Like I said about the AK, love the Grau 5.56, and also this Wolfmother variant pretty much comes with all these attachments on it anyways. So if you're looking for something without having to level the Grau up too much, definitely get the Wolfmother thing in the store. It's pretty much got everything you need. All right, so for our final gun here, I feel like I got to give you guys a Krig 6 build, because even though they did increase the recoil of this thing and they did kind of nerf a little bit, it's still going to be a very popular gun that people are going to use. I could give you guys, let's say, like an AMAX setup or something like that, but everyone knows an AMAX build. So I kind of want to give you guys here a pretty good, Krig 6 build. For the muzzle, throwing on that agency, of course, it's going to be the best thing. We definitely need to be able to control the recoil as much as possible now. So that agency is going to be pretty crucial, in my opinion, to be able to throw on there. So always throw on that agency. Now in the barrel section, I've seen a lot of people, like me personally, also using the 19.7 Ranger barrel. But I guess kind of what we're trying to deal with a little bit more so now is more recoil. So you guys could definitely go with this 15 CMV mil-spec, which is going to help with your horizontal as well. Of course, this is going to have more penalties to it because it's the Task Force barrel equivalent. But if you guys are okay with that, I would definitely recommend to run that. If you're okay with having a bit of a slower gun, if you feel like you can control whatever is going to be coming your way, run the 19.7 Ranger and you will deal with less penalties. So it's just kind of one of those things. I personally would go with the Ranger because, for me, at least on PC, it looks like stuff has a tad bit less visual recoil just because of FOV, 120 versus console, which is 80. It's one of those things, an advantage of being on PC. I know it's not fair to console, but it is what it is. So we're going to throw on the Ranger here, but it's just kind of personal preference between Ranger and CMV mil-spec. So we're throwing on that. And then for the underbarrel section, we're going to throw on the Field Agent Grip, horizontal and vertical. I mean, you can't go wrong with this thing. I mean, you need this nowadays. I used to be able to run my Krig 6 without a foregrip at all, which was really awesome, but now you definitely cannot do that, specifically after that most recent update. So always run the Field Agent Grip on your Krig 6. Now in the magazine section, what we're going to go ahead and do is throw on the Stenag 60 round magazine. I ain't going to repeat myself here for a third time. You guys probably know what I'm going to say. But this is just kind of the best possible thing. I mean, you definitely need those 60 rounds. It's not like this gun's going to hit super hard like the EM2, where you can get away with 40 instead of like 50. I mean, this thing, you definitely need 60. I would always recommend 60. There's no real reason for you to ever run 45. It just doesn't make sense to me, flat out. No real reason to ever do that. Just run the 60 here, call it a day. And finish off this build here, we of course need an optic, and you guys know what I'm going to say. The Axle Arms 3 times. That's going to be our go-to for this thing. Sometimes people run the Royal Cross 4. Which, hey, I mean, it's up to you, but for me, I think it zooms in a little bit too much. I do not like that at all. So the Axle Arms is going to be my go-to here for this gun. So this is going to be my final build here. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. Definitely going to give it a shot. It's still really good even after the nerf and the update. If you guys enjoyed today's video at all, make sure you guys give it a like, hit that subscribe button as well with all notifications turned on, and just remember, don't be Randy, and I'm out. Peace.